Every other week this year, we have been hearing about some or the other major event happening across the world.
Russian tanks rolling across the border in southern Ukraine.
27 Chinese fighter jets took off for military operations near Taiwan.
In recent weeks, Russian military facilities in Crimea have increasingly come under attack from Ukrainian forces.
Spain had its hottest July since 1961.
Economy in US is at risk of possibly going into a recession.
These are events that impact the rest of the world. And this brings one very important question. Who will shape the future of us, the human race? As the saying goes, history repeats itself. And throughout history, many politicians have tried to answer this question in their own way. Some have said colonies, others have said dictatorship, most have said democracy. And here's our attempt to break it down for you. In April this year, Dubai held the World Government Summit, where they discussed the new global order and if we are ready for it. But why were they discussing it? If you follow us on YouTube or our Instagram page, you probably already know the answer. We recently made a video on the Russia-Ukraine escalation. We'll link it down below, you can check it out. We spoke about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and how it caused economic impact across the world and making global peace extremely uncertain. The Atlantic Council, a US-based think tank, believes that the Russian invasion of Ukraine and China's falling economy is dividing the world into two different sides, one centered around Washington DC and the other around Beijing. In fact, Indian ministers are also expecting a new world order.
No, the world is not just different. The very structure of the international order is undergoing a profound transformation.
India has a big role to play in this new world order and will be using the concept of Vasudev Kutumbakam, or the whole world is a unit, to show their leadership. But before we move forward, what exactly is a world order and what could it change? After World War II, one of the deadliest conflicts in our history, countries tried to make sure that we never saw such horrific violence again. But clearly, that wasn't possible. The same world leaders created a number of international organizations and agreements to promote global cooperation on issues such as security, trade, economy, and health. The world order at the time comprised of the countries that ran these organizations or worked closely with other countries as influential superpowers. For example, the United States has backed this system, which is known as the liberal world order, for the past 75 years. The problem is that these institutions that were created are far from perfect. And today, they are unable to find solutions to problems that are causing disorder, such as climate change and global pandemic.
The United Nations has become a platform for countries to abuse each other.
The world must prepare for a potential coronavirus pandemic.
His agency is in charge of the global response to the coronavirus pandemic.
What's worse is that democracy is on the decline, authoritarianism is on the rise, and countries like China are taking away the liberal world order, creating their own institutions.
In recent years, China has been gaining power in the United Nations system.
The United Nations chief has urged China and the United States to repair what he calls a dysfunctional relationship.
So to answer the question, yes, a lot is changing. Emerging superpowers and China are closely watching how the Ukraine conflict changes the world order, because the loss of Ukraine with the backing of US would force the world to rethink the commitment and competence of the US to be a global superpower.
America's influence was unmatched in every way possible.
The future of some of the world's major economies. Nearly 12 major economies are staring at a recession.
While Russia keeps on trying to bring Ukraine's region under its territory, China is also expanding its security alliances in the Pacific. But the shift of the global balance of power to East Asia is far from over. The US has found a worthy rival in China for global dominance. But Russia, India, and Europe also aim to become power hubs in the coming multipolar order. So how did US land itself in this position?
The United States military has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
The last U.S. troops have withdrawn from Afghanistan.
America's longest war tonight, because that war is officially over. The last American military plane left from Kabul's airport at 3:29 p.m. Eastern Time.
After last year's messed up Afghanistan pullout, Middle Eastern partners have lost faith in America's commitment to global leadership. The Trump administration sabotaged a nuclear agreement with Iran, and the Biden government is believed to be pursuing it without taking Iran's regional aggressiveness into account. Middle East can interpret this as political isolation from decision making. The Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE have no intention of breaking ties with Russia and China because of the trade partnership. So what is India's involvement? Given that America's usual oil producing allies are not ready to help them and the OPEC is resisting requests to produce more oil, Russia is looking at other countries for strategic alliance, which is why the Russian foreign minister visited New Delhi and said this:
If India wants to buy anything from us, We are ready to discuss and to reach mutually acceptable forms of cooperation.
However, India believes that it needs a bigger seat on the table. Indian policy experts believe that adding India to the G7 to make G8 will be a game changer. G7 was the grouping of the richest and the most advanced economies in the world. It was founded in the 1970s by America to basically show its power beyond its shores. But the world has changed significantly since the 1970s. India and China are not formally part of the G7 but are among the top 7 economies in the world. Russia used to be a part of the G7+1 but it stopped getting invited after it annexed Crimea in 2014. Now all that is left to see is whether Ukraine will survive as an independent, sovereign and democratic country, and whether the US and Europe-backed forces will regain momentum against the Russian-Chinese forces to maintain the world order as we know it. Hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. Tell us in the comment section what you think will happen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel with the notification bell.